Hello, my name is Andrew Bowen, or Andrew Peter Bowen, and I have created this video in order to explain the mechanics of a war game Boots on the Ground by playing a short game. This game is an adaptation of the game Space Marine, however I have created it for smaller forces. In the game Space Marine, when I used to play it, I found that the stands would get killed very easily, and so the game required vast numbers of models, and as a player, I didn't really feel very invested in the fates and fortunes of the individual stands. So when I created this game, Boots on the Ground, I made the combat much grittier. In the game, models aren't just removed from the board, but they will suffer special damage. However, I think it would help in your understanding of the game by showing you a game example. And so let's start a game of Boots on the Ground. The battle that I shall be using as an example will be one between FADIK and the Spectre Marines, and I will be using the army lists shown here. The FADIK force has a value of 555 points. It is a small force and contains an Mk1 Hotchkiss tank detachment, an Mk2 Katagoa tank detachment, a Republican Guard detachment, and an ATV detachment. The force contains only 20 models, so you can see that players don't need many models to play this game, though there are additional rules for larger forces if players want to play an epic battle. The Spectre Marine force has a points value of 550 points. It contains a Spectre Combat Hero detachment, a Spectre Robot detachment, and a Spectre Marine Tactical Company. The force contains 24 models. And here is the battlefield where the action will be happening. The size of the board is only 32 inches by 20 inches, or 80 centimeters by 50 centimeters, though with larger forces the area can be expanded. The Spectre Marines are starting on the right, and most of the troopers are in troop carriers that can carry up to 3 stands. FADIK are starting on the left, and again the troopers are starting in the FADIK troop carriers. For a basic game, I have placed down 2 objective tiles. For every objective tile that a force holds, it gains 50 victory points at the end of the game. Victory points are also gained from destroying enemy detachments, which will be 1/10 of the value of a detachment. This game will be played for 5 turns. So, let's start the battle with turn 1. Both sides roll a d6 to see which side will go first. In this case, the Spectre Marines will go first, and then players will give their units orders. There are 5 kinds of order that can be given. These are hold, stealth, charge, advance, and full fire. Order counters are placed next to detachments upside down to hide what is on the order, and then these are all revealed at the same time before movement starts. Most of the Spectre Marines are on charge orders. They need to advance quickly owing to the enemy having the advantage of tanks with long-range cannons. The FADIK army has its troopers on charge orders to take and hold objectives, whereas the tanks are on full fire orders to give covering fire. One detachment of Spectre Marines moves directly towards objective 2, and the troopers disembark from the troop carriers and take cover in the woodland. The other detachments take cover in rubble and behind a hill. The detachment commander has taken objective 1. The Spectre robots are out in the open, but they will be able to fire in this turn as they are on advance orders. FADIK also moves forwards, and they close in on objective 2. The tanks don't move as they are on full fire orders. In the shooting phase, the Spectre robots fire at the Mk2 tanks. As the tanks are not in cover, d6s are rolled. The tanks are only in range of the robots' huddle guns and the heavy machine guns, of which only 2 huddle guns hit. These have a shot power of d6 plus 1, and the scores are 2 and 7. For vehicle damage, a damage table is used. The front armour of the target is deducted from the score, and then the damage table is consulted. 7 minus an armour value of 6 is 1. This means an Mk2 tank cannot fire one of its weapons. As Mk2 tanks only have one weapon, it may no longer fire, and a counter is put next to it to show that its weapon is damaged. The Mk2 tanks return fire at the Spectre robots, and as the robots are out in the open, D6s are rolled. Mk2 tank cannons have an accuracy of 3, but as the tanks are on full fire orders, their accuracy is 4. This means a score of 4 or less is required to hit the target, and all 3 shots hit. The shots from the Mk2 cannons have a shot power of D10 plus 1, so 2 shots score 8 and 1 scores 6. The front armour of the Spectre robot is only 4, so 2 robots are destroyed completely, and the third has a damaged engine and may no longer move. The Mk1 tanks then fire their autocannons. Each rolls 2 dice, as each one has 2 autocannons on its turret. The tanks target the troopers in the cover of a small hill. As this is soft cover, D8s are rolled. The tanks are on full fire, so their cannons have an accuracy of 3 instead of 2, so they need to score 3 or less to hit. 3 hits are scored on the troop carriers, and D12s are rolled for damage. The troop carrier has a front armour of 6, so only 1 hit does damage, but it is enough to destroy the troop carrier completely. The next phase is the close combat phase, but as there is no close combat happening, we continue to the remnant phase. This is for any stands that didn't fire in the shooting phase, and for those wanting to use certain skills. There are no stands that can do anything in this phase, so we move on to the end phase. In the end phase, detachments that are within range of enemy weapons or that have lost any stands must take a bravery test. For intact detachments, this is done on a D6. For detachments that have at least 1 casualty, this is done on a D8. And for detachments that have lost at least half their stands, this is done on a D10. Please note that if a stand is unconscious, or it's a vehicle that has had an internal explosion, this counts as a casualty. The Spectre Marines have a bravery value of 6, and the robots don't take bravery tests, and they all stand firm. FADIK generally has a bravery value of 5, and they pass all their bravery tests, which are done on D6s. If a bravery test is failed, this doesn't mean that the detachment will run away. This is done on a table in the same way that damage is calculated. And that is the end of the first turn. So, let's go on to turn 2. In this turn, FADIK gets to move first. Only the FADIK ATVs are given charge orders, and the rest are given full fire orders, with the FADIK tanks continuing their bombardment of the Spectre Marines. Only FADIK's ATVs will move in this turn, and they engage the Spectre Marine commander and his vehicle in close combat. However, as they are on hold orders, they get to fire at the ATVs. The troop carrier has an accuracy of 1 and the commander has an accuracy of 2, so different dice are used for the 2 stands. The commander hits with his shot. He is armed with a Spectre shotgun which does D10 minus 1 damage. So with a dice score of 9, the shot power is 8. As ATVs have only an armour value of 3 on their front, 1 stand is destroyed. All the ATVs are able to get into base-to-base contact with the enemy, but the other Spectre Marine detachments charge in behind. The FADIK detachment fires upon the Spectre Marines in the woodland. As the woodland gives them soft cover, D8s are rolled. The troopers have an accuracy of 3, these are the green dice, and the vehicles have an accuracy of 2, the red dice. However, as the Spectre Marines are on hold orders, accuracy has been reduced by 1 point. Normally the D8 would have been changed to a D10, but I didn't have the D10s available at the time, so I just decided to reduce the accuracy by 1 point. With these dice, 1 scores a hit, but the dice score for damage is only 4. As the Spectre Marines have an armour value of 3 all around, 4 minus 3 is the effect of 1 on the damage table for infantry, meaning 1 stand is wounded. The Spectre Marines fire back and only roll D6s as the FADIK troop carriers are not in cover. As the troopers are behind the troop carriers, these count as being in soft cover. The Spectre troop carriers have an accuracy of 1, red dice, and the troop carriers have an accuracy of 2, the green dice. 2 hits are scored on a troop carrier, and one of these damages the weapon of a FADIK troop carrier. The Mk1 tanks fire at the remaining Spectre robot. They have an accuracy of 3 as they are on full fire orders, and score 5 hits. 3 of these hits are enough to completely destroy the remaining robot, and FADIK gain 10 victory points for its destruction. The Mk2 tanks fire at the Spectre troop carrier in the side, where it has an armour value of only 5. 2 shots hit and 1 die scores a 5. With a bonus 1 that the weapon gets to its result, this counts as a 6, and the Spectre troop carrier has lost its weapon. It is now the close combat phase, and combat results are worked out for each stand. In close combat, the table for infantry is slightly different, on which infantry stands become heavily wounded instead of unconscious. Combat between each stand is worked out by rolling 2 dice. The Spectre combat hero rolls 2d8 and scores 14. The ATV stand rolls 2d8 and scores 5. 14 minus 5 is 9. And then we consult the close combat table. As this result is greater than 3, the ATV stand is completely destroyed. A Spectre Marine tactical squad attacks another ATV stand. This rolls 2d6 plus 1 against the ATV's 2d8. 10 minus 6 means the Spectre Marine squad is destroyed. However, another Spectre Marine squad attacks the same stand. Because this is the second squad attacking the same stand, it receives an additional dice. As this squad normally rolls d6s, the additional dice is a d6. The squad scores 6 plus 1 for bonus, and this is a total of 7. 7 minus 3 means the ATV squad is destroyed. Another Spectre Marine squad attacks another ATV stand. However, it scores 6, and the ATV stand scores 8. 8 minus 6 is 2, meaning the Spectre Marine squad is heavily wounded. This combat continues until there is just one ATV stand left. In the end phase, bravery tests are taken. The ATV detachment takes its test on a d10 and scores 6, which means the stand is wavering. The Spectre Marine tactical detachment rolls a d8 for their test and they pass. And so this is the end of turn 2, and so we can move on to turn 3. The Spectre Marines will move first this turn, and as the combat hero detachment is no longer engaged to any ATV stands, the units can be given fresh orders, and they are put on charge orders. The FADIK troopers are on advance orders, so that they can move all their troopers forwards and can all target the enemy. As before, the FADIK tanks are on full fire orders. The Spectre combat heroes charge towards the tanks, as these will be a problem. However, because these tanks are on a hill and it is also difficult ground, progress will be very slow. But if the combat heroes can get to the flank of these tanks, this will force them to turn around in order to keep the combat heroes in line of sight. The FADIK troopers advance, though this has now made them exposed. The Spectre Marines are on full fire orders, and they score 4 hits. As the FADIK troopers only have an armour of value of 2, 2 squads are left unconscious and a third is destroyed. The FADIK detachment returns fire and scores 3 hits. 1 does no damage, 1 destroys the Spectre Marine squad, and the other wounds the wounded Spectre Marine squad. As this squad has already been wounded, it becomes unconscious, as can be seen on the damage table for infantry. The Mk2 tanks fire at the Spectre combat heroes and score 2 hits, and 1 dice scores a 9, meaning a total shot power of 10, slaying one of the heroes. The Mk1 tanks also fire at the heroes. As they are on first fire orders, they would normally have an accuracy of 3, but as the heroes are slightly obscured by the cliff, I reduced this to 2. Normally they would roll d8s to hit, but it was just more convenient to roll d6s at the time. 2 hits are scored, but they failed to do any damage. The close combat phase is then resolved with the complete destruction of the ATV squad, giving the Spectre Marines 11 victory points. In the end phase, all bravery tests are passed, so we move on to turn 4. In turn 4, the Spectre Marines get to move first. All the FADIK detachments are on first fire orders, whereas the Spectre Marines have a mixture of orders. The Spectre heroes charge up the hill on which the FADIK tanks sit, and stay out of the range of the tank cannons. The Spectre Marine tactical squads advance, while the commander stays put, and the other Spectre Marine tactical detachment trades fire with the FADIK troop detachment. The Spectre Marine detachment scores 4 hits on the FADIK troopers, and they wound one squad and destroy another 2. FADIK fires back, but only the FADIK trooper stand hits. However, the shot doesn't cause any damage. The Mk2 tanks fire at the advancing Spectre Marines and destroy one squad and wound another. The Spectre Marines fire back, scoring 2 hits, one of which destroys the engine on an Mk2 tank, and the other destroys the weapon of another. The Mk1 tanks fire at the Spectre troop carrier. This is the chosen target because if they try to target the Spectre tactical squad behind, D8s would be required to hit it. They score 2 hits, one destroyed the engine of the vehicle and the other causes an internal explosion. This vehicle now counts as a casualty. It is best to turn over a vehicle to show that it has been destroyed. However, it still gives cover to troops, counting as rubble. Though, if an enemy wishes, they can try to destroy the remains of this vehicle in order to remove this cover. The Spectre Marine commander and troop carrier fire at the Mk2s and score a hit. This damages another weapon on an Mk2 tank. In the end phase, bravery tests are taken, and the FADIK troop detachment takes theirs on a D10. This roll scores a 9. As the bravery value of the detachment is 5, 9 minus 5 is 4, which means the detachment surrenders. When a detachment surrenders, remove all infantry and cavalry stands from the board, and any vehicles become scenery, counting as rubble, though they still count as being intact. Spectre Marines gain 13 victory points. As for the Mk2 tank detachment, they haven't suffered any casualties, so they take the bravery test on a D6. However, this is failed. They waver, and they have to be put on hold orders next turn. And now it is the final turn. The Spectre Marine heroes are on charge orders, whereas the other Spectre Marine units are on full fire orders. They fire at the Mk2s, scoring 3 hits. One hit destroys the engine on one Mk2, and the other hit causes weapon damage on the second. As this second tank has no weapon to damage and already has a damaged engine, it has an internal explosion, making it part of the scenery and counting as a casualty. In the close combat phase, the Mk1 fights with the combat heroes. The Mk1 rolls 2d10 and scores 16, whereas the Spectre combat hero rolls 2d8 and scores 14. This means the combat hero is heavily wounded. The other combat hero attacks the tank and rolls d8, scoring 17. However, he's rolling 3 because it is the second stand to attack the same target. The Mk1 tank only scores 6 and it is destroyed. In the end phase, bravery tests are taken. As both FADIK tank detachments have now suffered casualties, they must roll d8s for this. The Mk1 tank detachment scores 8. 8 minus its bravery value of 5 means it scores 3 on the bravery test table, and the detachment goes on retreat orders. And that is the end of turn 5, and the end of the game, with the Spectre Marines successfully holding both objectives. So, I hope you found this example of the game informative, and that it has cleared up any doubts that the players have about playing Boots on the Ground. Remember, this game is currently available on Wargame Vault and for only $6, so check it out, and I hope you download it and enjoy playing it. That's all from me now. Goodbye, and I'll probably do some more videos explaining other games in the near future. Bye for now.